Good afternoon, and I'll start this meeting at 2 o'clock. Welcome to the committee members, members of the public, and those that might be watching on YouTube. Firstly, a bit of housekeeping, and I'll ask my Vice Chair to read out the fire safety notice. Thank you.
The building fire alarm signal is a continuous two-tone alarm. Leave the building by the nearest marked exit route. Follow the green signs to the assembly point, which is a large staff car park opposite the entrance to the building. Anyone who cannot use the stairs will be helped by officers present after other people have left. Do not return to the building until told it is safe to do so by an authorised officer. The whole of the council site is a no smoking area. Mobile phones must be switched to silent or off, please. Thank you.
Thank you. By way of introductions, my name's Dick Swetton. I'm chairing this committee. To my right is Nick Rogers, Head of Development and Management. To his right is Paula Slim, our Legal Officer for today, and Joe Swift, Senior Planning Officer, who will be taking us through the application. In the corner we have Alison, that's very kindly doing the technical bits for us today. To my left is Councillor Bruce Forbes, my Vice Chairman. To his left is Kevin Toogood, the Monitoring Officer. And in the corner we have Alex, who's kindly taking the minutes for us today. So go to item 1 to receive apologies for absence, and I have apologies from Councillor Laband, Marsh and Whitaker. Item 2 is to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. Thank you, Vice Chair.
I'm not sure I have to, but I would say that I am on the South of England committee on behalf of Mid Sussex, and the showground comes under my district for West Sussex, but I've taken no part in any discussions on these applications.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 is to confirm the minutes of the committee meeting held on the 16th of February 23. If members are happy with that, can you go on your voting pads now, please?
The minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of February 2023 are hereby approved and confirmed.
Thank you very much. And that's approved. Item 4, to consider any items the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. Now we go to the application for today, which is DM/22/1575, land west of Selsfield Road, Ardingly West. And I'll hand you over to Mr. Joe Swift to take us through the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a number of updates on the update sheet, which I'll just take you through. We've received an additional representation letter raising concerns over the sewage system being at maximum capacity. On page 32 of the report, the section 20, SA 25 is updated to read biodiversity and green infrastructure, as biodiversity was missed from that. On page 32, the flood risk and drainage section should also refer to the following section of SA 25. The flood risk and drainage is to provide a flood risk assessment which includes details of ground investigations and permeability testing to inform an appropriate method for disposal of surface water and explore the potential use of infiltration suds. As set out in the report, the proposal has been supported by a combined flood risk assessment and foul and surface water drainage, which includes ground and permeability testing, and is seeking to provide such as such is considered to comply with SA 25. On page 45 in other matters is to add policy SA 38 air quality, which in part states the council will require applicants to demonstrate that there is not unacceptable impact on air quality. Development should minimise any air quality impacts, including cumulative impacts from committed developments, both during the construction process and the lifetime of the completed development, either through a redesign of the development proposal or where this is not possible or sufficient for appropriate mitigation. The applicant has submitted an air quality assessment with the planning application. While there is no air quality management areas in the vicinity of the site, because of the number of dwellings proposed, the Environmental Protection Officer has requested a condition on air quality, requiring suitable mitigation measures to preserve the amenity of local residents in terms of air quality. This condition is recommended as per condition 18. And finally, on page 55, there's an additional condition to be added. Condition 26, that the application for reserve matters shall be accompanied by a full detailed sustainability and energy report and recommendations which demonstrate how the development will be efficient in its use of energy and water. The development shall only be implemented in accordance with the approved details set out in that report, and the reason is to accord with policy DP 39 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan 2014 to 2031 and section 14 of the MPPF. The application is seeking outline consent for 35 dwellings on land to the west of Southfield Road in Ardingly, with all matters reserved except for access. As such, with this application, we're only considering the principle of the allocated site and access. Landscaping, scale, layout and appearance will all form part of the reserve matters application. As we can see from the first plan, the application site has been identified by the red border. It's set within the wider South of England showground, which is marked within the blue line. It's only a small section of the wider showground and is quite closely related to the village of Ardingly. This plan provides a bit more detail. The site wraps around the existing recreation ground, linking into the village on the southern boundary and also coming in close proximity as well at the southeastern edge. The site is currently a flat open grassland with a site area of approximately 2.3 hectares. The site is designated as being in the built-up area boundaries of Ardingly. It is also within an area of outstanding natural beauty and within 7 kilometres of the Ashdown Forest SPA. On the plan, we can see the conservation areas marked in a blue hashed line. So we have the Ardingly Conservation Area West on the right-hand side and the Eastern Conservation Area to the east. In addition to this, we can see that there are a number of listed buildings, particularly over on the eastern side. These are marked by these orange circles on the plan. The next plan is the access. The proposal is seeking to adopt the existing Southgate access into the South England showground by removing the tapers and extending the grass verge up to the highway edge. The access has been shown to have visibility displays of 138 metres in both directions. The access, as shown here, will also incorporate a footpath, a 2 metre wide footpath, which will link into the existing footpath, which heads into Ardingly. West Sussex County Council Highways have been consulted on this proposal and have raised no objections or highway safety concerns in relation to the proposed access, subject to conditions. The following plan is an indicative plan of how the site could be laid out. Obviously, this will form part of the reserve matter stage, but just give an indication of how this can be achieved. As you can see from the plan, it is looking to achieve a fairly spacious edge of village development at approximately 15 dwellings per hectare. The proposal also shows footpath access as well as the access also to the southern part of the site. And here we have a few photos looking at the access point. The first photo here is looking north. You can see the footpath access heading up to the gated access, and the second footpath is looking south towards Ardingly. The next two photos are from the access point. The first one is looking towards Southfield Road from the existing Southgate access, and the second is looking towards the access from Southfield Road. As part of the proposal, the gate, which we can see in these pictures, is to be moved to beyond the proposed access point for the proposed development. And these are some photos taken in the site. The first one is looking north across the site towards the access road, which is highlighted by the tree bough. The second photo is looking south towards the play area just outside of the application site. The third photo here is looking across the site towards the recreation ground, again is marked by the tree boundary. And the final photo is looking from just by the access point south so the Southfield Road runs along the left of the site with the recreation ground beyond the tree bough. So these two photos just show a bit clearer. This one is looking north across the site towards the showground and access, and the second is looking towards the recreation ground. As you can see from these photos, it's currently an undeveloped parcel of land, mainly laid to grass. The proposal is only considering the principal and access at this stage. The application site is allocated within the site's DPT and is within the built-up area boundaries. As such, the principal additional housing is considered acceptable in accordance with SA 25 and DP6, the Mid-Sussex District Plan. It is therefore considered acceptable in principle. Furthermore, the proposed access is considered acceptable, subject to the conditions recommended, with no objections from West Sussex Highways. The proposal is considered to cause less than substantial harm to the heritage assets. However, the benefits of 11 affordable dwellings, a 10.82 biodiversity net gain on sites, helping to meet the Council's housing requirements, the infrastructure contributions towards education, libraries, highways, improvements, place-based and formal sports, additional spending in the local economy and the economic benefits during the construction phase are all considered to weigh positively in the planning balance and are given significant weight. There's a neutral impact on the Ashdown Forest, drainage, accessibility and archaeology, and it is considered that the public benefits outweigh the less than substantial harm to the heritage assets, and it is therefore recommended that the application is approved subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement. So it's recommended that the Commission is approved subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement with the conditions set out in Appendix A. We have a recommendation B that if the applicants have not submitted a satisfactorily signed Section 106 legal agreement to secure the necessary infrastructure, affordable housing and Ashdown Forest mitigation payments by the 9th of May 2023, then at the discretion of the Assistant Director for the Planning and Sustainable Economy, the application be refused as it fails to comply with policy DP20 and DP31 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan in respect of the infrastructure and affordable housing requirements to serve the development, and the proposal does not adequately mitigate the potential impacts on the Ashdown Forest Special Protection Area and Special Area of Conservation, and would therefore be contrary to the Conservation and Habitat Species Regulations 2010, Policy DP17 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan, and paragraph 180 of the National Planning Policy Framework. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. We do have 4 speakers today. The first speaker I'd like to call is Councillor Hoplack. I'll just explain how our timing system works. You may not be aware. I'm sorry, do they have unlimited time? 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Sorry. You do have 3 minutes to speak. The first minute will be timed by the legal officer, when the green light comes on our little machine over there, you'll have 2 minutes. When the orange light comes on, you will have 30 seconds. And when the red light comes on, I will ask you to round up to your nearest sentence. Thank you.
I'm on the clock.
There we go.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, councillors and officers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We just wanted to make 6 points. The first is about the road layout that you've already seen. We have on our councillor who's a former highways expert, this is based on his advice. That junction is going to be used by residential traffic and existing showground traffic. And we've got 3 concerns. The reduced radius will mean that heavy goods vehicles and long vehicles will have to swing out into the opposing lane to negotiate the corner. Removal of the acceleration lane means that all traffic, including residential and show traffic, will have less time to accelerate up to the speed of the traffic on the main road, causing problems. And the third point is that there was a removal of what is a safe dog walking parking. They will not disappear, they will go somewhere else and it'll be less safe. Second point, affordable housing. We thoroughly support 11 affordable houses and I'm pleased to hear that's reiterated. Our demographic is primarily over 60s. There are only 300 odd residents in the 20 to 29 range. So what we would urge is that the actual housing mix has many more smaller houses to encourage younger people and smaller families. Third point, screening of the proposed development on the western boundary. We noted what's been proposed. We'd like to see robust detail around this come the detailed application to respect the natural beauty of the village. And we ask that the style of housing come the detailed application should be in keeping with that of the village and its rural nature. Our fourth point, water and sewage. It's already been alluded to. We have on our council, again, a former CEO of one of the water companies, and he, I think, will talk more about this. The water supply is very stressed, and this will just add further stress. This is the water supply, further stress to the supply network. We've already seen an outage at Morninglid. That was summer before last, and over this winter we had a long outage, admittedly due to frost, but it wasn't that hard a frost this December. The second part of it is the wastewater capacity, which has been overdue for a long time, overcapacity for a long time. So we ask that that's dealt with in some proper detail. We applaud your comments on energy and sustainability. Our main point is that instead of having an attenuation pond, we go for harvesting of rainwater and grey water, which is part of Ardingly's Parish Council's own environmental policy. And the final point is on transport. Public transport is... sorry, have I got to stop?
Well, I'll ask you to round up to your nearest sentence. I think you're nearly finished, haven't you?
Yeah. That's the fun. The public transport is very infrequent. We need that assessed, and we need additional parking in the village to cope with additional traffic and housing. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Next speaker to call is Mr. Timothy Hughes. And you're speaking as a resident, are you? Or yes, thank you.
A long-time resident in my private capacity.
Right. I don't have to stay. You can sit down if it makes you more comfortable.
It's all right. I refer to my submission to Joseph Swift on the 15th of December last year with arguments made against this application, evidence from the statements and policies of the Mid-Sussex Plan 2021 to 2039, specifically foul water and sewage, treatment and disposal. The current system is running at maximum capacity now and has already flooded new homes in Monks Meadow. Air quality, Ardingly is presently graded amber. Currently, there are very high traffic levels on College Road, a C road, and the High Street Selsfield Road, the BO28. These include Hanson HGVs, commuter route to London and Gatwick, Ardingly College parents, visitors to the showground, Wakehurst, Bluebell Railway, and additional cars and service vehicles that will come to this development. It would be made a lot worse if this site was to go ahead. As well as that, there are showground events which have a direct adverse impact on air quality, noise pollution, and other things. Please refer to the detailed environmental study report which is on this file, which I have read. It contains a lot of important information. The next point is the flawed house building algorithm which was used by government when this site was put forward. It has been discredited and is no longer safe nor relevant. The recent backbench revolt by MPs on the 5th of September 2022 resulted in house building targets imposed on local authorities changed from mandatory to advisory. I contend this is no longer relevant and can be absorbed by the three major sites identified at Burgess Hill, Crabbit Park and Sayers Common. The additional strain on utilities and infrastructure needs no further explanation. The demographics of the village, Ardingly has hardly any affordable houses and an ageing population. It does not need more upmarket expensive houses. I am told that development under DPH 34, rural exception sites, is not an option. Finally, the South of England Showground Management have an appalling record of abuse of planning and licensing of events, and this is well known to senior planner Andrew Clark, who I've had a meeting with. Their inconsistent financial returns to the Charity Commission are very questionable, as is the activities giving cause for concern being increasingly commercial and impacting on existing residents, let alone new owners of the houses. And also whether the showground management have the legal powers to sell, dispose of the land gifted to them for agricultural purposes.
I'll have to stop you there, Mr. Hughes. I'm afraid the red light's come on. And
I was going to say, finally, are there any questions on anything I've said?
no, we don't interact.
No, okay.
We listen and take your points on
Okay,
board.
I've finished. Sorry if I overran a fraction.
No, not at all. No, we're not that strict. We just round you up to the last sentence.
Thank you.
Chairman, I think at this point I ought to declare that I'm Vice President at the showground.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I'm just a member and a life.
Okay, thank you for your declaration. Next speaker is Mr. David Port. And you're speaking as a resident, I take it?
Yeah, I am a councillor, but I'm speaking as a simple resident of Ardingly. Okay. I've lived in Ardingly for 50 years, and during that time, I've seen the population average age going up and up. And today, although a figure is just to be mentioned, in the age group of 20 to 40 years old, only 17% of the population are in that age group, which is very, very low. And I therefore ask that in order to address that problem, the numbers of affordable housing in this development are significantly increased. The second point concerns the environment. Sustainable urban drainage, which you probably know as SUDS, and I advise DEFRA and people like that in my professional life. That SUDS will become mandatory when DEFRA implements Schedule 3 of the Flood and Water Management Act 2010, and they're going to do this in 2024, which is next year. The National Planning Policy Framework, the NPPF, already recommends this, and I ask that SUDS becomes a requirement of this planning approval. Essentially, this means permeable driveways, roads and all hard standing. Also concerning the environment, and in the knowledge that we live in a water supply stressed area, as already mentioned, I ask that all dwellings be fitted with water efficient devices and rainwater harvesting such as water butts. I know the building regs don't call for this, but ultimately that will change. But it's no reason why you cannot recommend it. Finally, to help us achieve our net zero carbon ambitions, that's nationally, I ask that you recommend for all dwellings to have roof-mounted solar panels. My proposals, if adopted, will make for a more sustainable development, both for the environment and the population mix. And in summary, my points are better mix of housing, i.e. more affordable units, requirement for SUDS, a recommendation for water efficient devices and rainwater harvesting, and a recommendation for solar panels. And just to add to what's already been said, the wastewater network is overloaded. I've done a calculation on that, and we don't have a CSO on the system. So when it becomes overloaded, the pipe bursts and you get sewerage flooding down College Road, as we've experienced a couple of times in recent years. So this development will feed more sewerage into the top end of the network, which will cause problems in transfer to the wastewater treatment works. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next speaker speaking for the application is Mr. Guy Dixon, who is the applicant.
Good afternoon, councillors. I speak as agent for the applicant in support of the application. As we've heard from officers, the site is subject to a site allocation under policy SA 25 of the Site Allocations DPD, which is adopted in June 22. This allocation means there is a presumption in favour of the development of 35 dwellings on the site. This application seeks to reinforce this support in principle and is in outline form, with all detailed matters reserved except for means of access. The illustrative scheme is one that's been prepared to demonstrate that 35 dwellings proposed can be delivered in accordance with the requirements of the adopted planning policies. It is not, however, a finalised layout. This detail will be subject to separate later reserved matters applications. The inspector's report for the Site Allocations DPD was satisfied that an allocation for 35 dwellings would not have a suburbanising effect on the village. Further, the inspector considered in detail the potential impact of the allocation on the Ardingly Conservation Area, concluding the scale of the allocation would appropriately minimise any harm. This application will deliver a number of benefits beyond contributing to the identified local housing need in Ardingly and across mid-Sussex. Key to this is the delivery of 11 affordable homes on site, but there will also be financial contributions towards local community infrastructure, children's play space and formal sport facilities at Ardingly Recreation Ground, and towards improvements to either Hapstead Hall or the Recreation Ground Pavilion. All in, we calculate that 45% of the financial contributions being made will be expended within Ardingly Parish. Perhaps equally as importantly as the housing delivery, the sale of the site will bring a significant financial boost to the land-owning charity, the South of England Agricultural Society. This will enable it to continue to offer the nationally important agricultural shows and agricultural training courses. COVID has hit this charity very hard, and these proposals will enable them to take the next positive steps forward in planning their future operations at the showground site. These proposals will see development solely on the allocated part of the site, and this has been judged as entirely acceptable in terms of AONB and heritage impact by an independent planning inspector. Further, all statutory consultees raise no objection in respect of all other planning considerations. Accordingly, your officers have recommended the application for approval, and as such, it's very much hoped that members will resolve to grant planning permission. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, that's quick. Okay, before I go to members, as you've heard, the principle of development has already been established through the allocation by the inspector in the draft plan document. Today we're looking at the outline application, which is means of access. So all the matters that we've heard will be looked at in the detailed reserved matters stage, but I'll throw that open to members. Councillor Coote.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of points. Number one, the gentleman referred to the ageing population. I'm wondering whether 2 or 3 bungalows could be included in the development in the future. Would this committee ask for it to come back to this committee when it's when the reserve matters have been cleared up? And the third item, which I'm not quite sure whether it affects us, Ardingly is a charity, and have they got the charity commissioner's permission to sell the land? Because that is something that is necessary. Thank you.
I'll pass that technical detail to Joe. Can you take that because of...
Yeah, sure. In terms of the final sort of layout, if there's going to be bungalows, that would be subject to the reserve matters stage. So we're not looking at that at this stage, but the reserve matters would be taken back to committee. In terms of the sale of the land, that's a separate private matter between with the landowners. It's not a material planning consideration as such.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I visited the site with a number of councillors on Monday and looked at the site. It seems a logical extension of the Hurstbeer Point, the Ardingly village. Certainly, one welcomes the 11 affordable houses, and as said, because of the demographics of Ardingly, I would like, when it comes to the reserve matters, there are a greater proportion of cheaper market houses so that younger people can afford to move there. Certainly being in the AONB, there is a requirement that any housing development in the AONB should satisfy the housing needs for those small communities within the AONB, and this was addressed with the site allocation DPT document, and that was agreed that this was a suitable site to include in that document. So I think I would support this application.
Yes, you're quite right. I mean, the housing will be looked at in the reserve matters stage. As you can see, I don't know whether we can put that up again with the illustration. It's purely illustrative that 35 houses can be adequately accommodated on the site. So it's, let's principle that. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The site visit, I think it was very useful because we started off with the access to the south gate, which seems to have been mentioned with the objecting voices. But anyway, that was explained to us, and have to accept that it won't interfere with the combined access for the showground as well as the 35 houses that are going to be proposed. I've listened very hard to those comments made, and I'm just wondering if there is a case for deferring, even though an outline application, to try and resolve some of the matters, especially as last evening a number of members did attend a presentation on 2 things, how we allocated housing and also the the sewage arrangements for the area. And this has cropped up here on a number of times by the objections, and I just wondered if we could get a better scheme. Councillor Coote has mentioned about bungalows and things like that, and I just wondered if this could be, resolved at this stage rather than it's going away and it's going to come back suddenly as a full planning application. Anyway, I looked at the showground operation doesn't seem to be compromised because there are other gate entrances. I use the premises quite often. It seems a good use of the redundant land, as other colleagues have said. It's next to other housing, and there is a space left between the perimeter road and the play area to try and avoid aggravating residents with noise from that source. So, I mean, generally, I would agree it's a good use of the site for housing. I'm very concerned with the very good points that have been raised by the local residents. And I just wondered if it's a case of can we defer this outline application to get a better input at this stage?
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Well, I don't think we can defer this application at this stage. We're purely looking at the access for this development, but we'll hand over to Nick Rogers here to give you added information on that.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just as you said, really, this application is just seeking to establish the principle of the development and the access. And as we've just said, this is already allocated anyway. So the points that you've raised in respect of the housing mix and drainage, those are going to be detailed matters which will come in further into the reserved matters applications if planning permission is granted an outline. So that there'll be no purpose at all of deferring this because you'll just get the same application back, which is to establish the principle and looking at highways. The points that you're concerned about or are interested in will come back through the reserved matters. So members will then have the opportunity to look at the mix, look at the drainage, and but not under this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eads.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I accept that we have to accept this because of the inspector saying it's okay, even though it's in the AONB. I think there is a problem that it will lead to suburbanisation, as the conservation officer has said. So I would like to see a lot more landscaping on the western side, but I accept that that will happen later on when we come back to this. I'd like, yes, to make sure that the design is such that we can have solar panels because of the aspect. I don't really understand why we are seeing the acceleration lane disappear, and I do see that as a disadvantage because of the swinging out of these larger vehicles. So that is an access issue, and I don't really see why that would happen. Yeah, that's about all I need to say. Oh, yes, and on the age profile, it's really important that we get affordable housing for younger people in this area. So very much in favour of that. Thank you.
Again, a lot of what you said will be in the detailed reserved matters. As regards, you mentioned about the access point, well, the highways have no objection to that at the moment, so thank you. Councillor Trumbull.
Thank you, Chairman. It is worth saying that this is just about principle, development and access. And it's been said many times, the principle is established. And the access, no matter what we say, if we stand up and shout, those who know better, and I say that in parentheses, those who know better have said there's no issues here. So even if we shouted about that, it would not stand up at appeal, as the agent well knows. I have to say, I have great sympathy with, I didn't get your name.
Councillor Hotpike.
Councillor Hotpike, Tim Hughes and David Ball. Yes, from Ardingly. Great sympathy. I couldn't go to the site meeting on Monday, but I know this site very well. I've been to Ardingly many, many times in an official and visitor capacity. I know the site well. I think it's a shame, actually, that it's going to be concreted over. I genuinely do. But we can't argue against that because the principle of development is established. So it's going to be concreted over. I hear all of the issues about the algorithm, the big houses, and believe me, I feel them. I live in Hurstpere Point. We're going to get stuffed with some 3,000 houses under this. I don't want those. But things being as they are, we have to live with what is happening. So I sympathise greatly. So we are where we are. We have an outline application. The principle is established. We have a means of access, which is agreed by highways. I do not think there's anywhere to go. I know this is going to be at the reserved matters stage. We've been talking about 11 affordable houses. Where it gives the number of bedrooms on page 29, we have 10 affordable houses. Could someone just clarify that, please? Is it 10 or is it 11? But that's not going to stop this application going through. So reluctantly, Chairman, I move as recommended.
Right, thank you, Councillor Trumbull. We do have Councillor Hatton that wishes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say that I agree with everything that's been said. I agree that the people that came to speak from Arden and I feel very sympathetic to all the things that they said. I do hope they will be encouraged to come to the next meeting when we look at the reserved matters, because they may feel they don't feel there's any value in saying it again, but there will be value in them saying it again. And I agree that we should move towards agreeing this at the moment.
Yeah, thank you very much. I quite agree. We always welcome people's comments at this planning committee meeting, and we do listen. So appreciate people coming along to the reserved matters stage. I wanted to address the question that was raised earlier.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Just to come back on Councillor Trumbull's point about the number of affordable houses. Originally, it was proposed to be 10, but that was negotiated up by the District Council to 11, and 11 is policy compliant. Okay, thank you.
So I have no other speakers that wish to speak. So I will go to the recommendations. Yeah, I'll come to that. Recommendations which are on page 9 of the report, and I think you wanted to clarify a recommendation on that. That's
Yeah,
recommendation A and B.
Just to confirm, I don't know, Joe, if you're able to put the recommendation page up again. If you can't, doesn't matter. But just to confirm, under recommendation A, it talks about securing infrastructure contributions. We need to also make it clear that they're also securing affordable housing and the Ashdown Forest mitigation. So that's under recommendation A, which is missing from that part there, just to be clear. Thank you.
And there's also the added condition that we discussed earlier. So members, if you'd like to go to your voting, I think I missed something out. Yeah, Councillor. Sorry? You're quite right. May I have a seconder? Councillor Hatton, thank you. Okay, members, I'd like to vote now, please.
The vote is unanimous, and the recommendation that planning permission be approved subject to the completion of a satisfactory Section 106 legal agreement to secure the contributions to affordable housing and the Ashdown Forest mitigation payments is approved.
Right, thank you very much. Item 6 on the agenda, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, due notice of which has been given. I have none. And thank you very much for attending.